My name is Jake Miller. I'm 26 years old and recently moved to Chicago to start a new job. It's a pretty standard office gig, but I needed the stability, and honestly, I was excited. Today was my first day at a company called Geyser Corp. It's your typical corporate office with endless cubicles, buzzing fluorescent lights, and the smell of fresh coffee lingering in the air. I arrived early, eager to make a good impression. The receptionist handed me a visitor's badge and directed me to the HR office for my onboarding. Everything seemed fine. Typical first-day paperwork, a brief orientation with the HR manager, and a quick tour of the building. My cubicle was on the 5th floor, sandwiched between rows of identical beige workspaces. It was around 11:30 a.m. when I finally sat down and powered up my computer. I looked around, observing my new colleagues. There was a guy across from me, tapping away on his keyboard, headphones on. Next to him, a middle-aged woman was talking on the phone. Then, I noticed the woman directly to my left. She was just sitting there, staring at her screen. Her nameplate read, Lisa M. Hey, I'm Jake. First day, I said with a nervous smile. Lisa didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed on the monitor, not even blinking. I waved my hands slightly, trying to get her attention. Nothing. Weird, I thought. Maybe she's just really focused. I turned back to my screen and tried to get through the onboarding process. Lunchtime rolled around, and I decided to head down to the cafeteria. I passed by Lisa's desk on my way. She was still sitting there, staring blankly, her fingers hovering over the keyboard like she was about to type, but never actually did. When I returned from lunch, I noticed her desk was empty. The computer was off, her chair pushed in. I figured she'd gone out for a break or something. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of training modules and introductions to people whose names I already forgot. Around 3 p.m., I casually mentioned Lisa's name to the guy sitting across from me. Hey, is Lisa coming back soon? She seemed pretty out of it earlier. He looked at me, puzzled. Who's Lisa? I blinked. Lisa, the woman who sits right here. I pointed to her empty cubicle. The man frowned, shaking his head. Dude, I've been here 3 years, and there's never been a Lisa in this office. I laughed, thinking he was messing with me, but he just shrugged and put his headphones back on. Confused, I asked a few more people in the office, but no one seemed to know who Lisa was. It's like she never existed. My stomach twisted with an uneasy feeling. I went to check the employee directory on my computer, searching for her name. Nothing. I even checked the seating chart I'd been given that morning. There was no mention of her anywhere. I started feeling a little crazy. I asterisk saw asterisk her. I asterisk talked asterisk to her, or at least I tried to. But now, it was as if she'd vanished, erased from everyone's memory but mine. It got worse. I noticed that the office, which had been bustling with people in the morning, was thinning out. Desks that were occupied just hours ago were now empty. I approached the receptionist to ask if people had left early. She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Sir, there haven't been many employees in this office for a while now. Are you sure you're in the right place? I felt a chill run down my spine. What do you mean? She sighed, as if explaining something obvious. The company downsized months ago. Most employees work remotely now. The building's almost empty. But I saw them. I insisted. This morning, the office was full. She gave me a polite but firm smile, then returned to her computer. I backed away, my heart pounding. Something was very wrong. I had to get out of there. I hurried to the exit, but the doors were locked. I tried another door, locked, too. I waved frantically at a security guard, but he didn't seem to notice me. It was like I was invisible. Panic set in. I ran down a hallway, desperately searching for a way out. I found a small side door that led to a staircase. I bolted down the stairs and burst outside into the alley behind the building. I took a few deep breaths, trying to calm myself. Then, I turned around to look at the office building. It was empty, completely abandoned. The windows were boarded up, and yellow police tape surrounded the entrance. I stared in shock. I had just been inside. How was this possible? A man in a suit approached me. "You okay, son? What happened here?" I asked, my voice shaking. I was just inside that building. There were people. His expression darkened. That office closed down years ago after a tragic incident. A mass suicide. All the employees, gone. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Lisa," I whispered. He nodded slowly. Lisa was one of them. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. I didn't wait for more explanations. I ran. As I looked back, the building loomed silently, like a ghost of a past I'd never forget. My name is Adam. I'm 30 years old, and I recently got a job as a construction worker in Boston. I've done various labor jobs before, but this was my first time on a big construction site. It felt like a step up, and I was excited to start. I arrived early that day, just as the sun was rising. The site was huge, with cranes, scaffolding, and workers moving around like ants. I checked in with the foreman, a gruff guy named Mike, who handed me a hard hat and pointed me toward a group of workers. "Stick with them," he said, "and stay away from the old elevator shaft on the east side." I nodded, though I didn't understand why he'd single out the shaft. I joined the crew, and we got to work lifting and moving materials. The guys seemed nice enough, though they kept throwing glances at me, whispering amongst themselves. During our first break, I asked one of the workers, a guy named Steve, what was up with the elevator shaft. His face went pale. "Man, don't go near that thing," he said. "A guy named Tony disappeared a few months back. They say he fell down there. They never found him." "Are you serious?" I asked, trying to hide my unease. "Dead serious," he replied. "No one goes near it." I tried to shake it off, but curiosity got the better of me. After lunch, when the crew spread out, I made my way to the east side of the site. The area was roped off, and an old, rusted elevator shaft stood there, surrounded by debris. I shouldn't have gone closer, but I did. I leaned over the edge, peering into the darkness below. The smell hit me first, a thick, rotting stench that made my stomach churn. Then I saw it, a twisted, decaying body at the bottom. I stumbled back, my heart racing. It had to be Tony. There was no mistaking it. "What the hell are you doing?" A voice boomed behind me. I whipped around to see Mike, the foreman, standing there, his face twisted with anger. I heard about Tony and..." I stammered. Mike's expression changed. A strange, almost amused smile spread across his face. "So, you saw him, huh?" I nodded, feeling a chill run down my spine. There was something off about the way he was looking at me. "You've got a big mouth, kid," he said softly, stepping closer. "We don't need people poking around and asking questions." Before I could react, I felt a forceful shove against my back. I stumbled forward, barely catching myself on the edge of the shaft. My heart pounded as I tried to regain my balance. I looked up, and Mike was grinning down at me. "You see, sometimes people cause problems," he said, his voice cold and calm. "And we have to get rid of them. Just like Tony." I froze, fear paralyzing me. He was going to kill me. Right here. Right now. I struggled to stand, but before I could move, something heavy slammed into the back of my head. Everything went black. When I came to, I was lying on the ground, my head throbbing. My hands and feet were bound with thick ropes. I tried to scream, but my voice was weak, barely a whisper. I was at the edge of the shaft, staring into the darkness below. Mike stood above me, his eyes cold and empty. "You were going to be next, Adam. But now, you're just going to be another accident." I struggled against the ropes, desperation clawing at my chest. "Please don't." But he didn't listen. He turned and walked away, leaving me there. I could hear the faint ticking sound of a timer. My heart raced as I realized what was happening. He'd set a bomb. I was going to die, just like Tony. I fought against the ropes, adrenaline surging through me. After what felt like an eternity, I managed to free my hands. I struggled to my feet, dizzy and weak, and stumbled away from the shaft. I didn't look back as I ran, my legs trembling beneath me. I made it to the site entrance just as an explosion rocked the ground. I turned, watching in horror as the east side of the site crumbled, debris flying everywhere. I collapsed, my body shaking, tears streaming down my face. The police and emergency services arrived soon after. They said it was a tragic accident, a gas leak that caused the explosion. But I knew better. I tried to tell them about Mike, about Tony, but they didn't believe me. No one believed me. The site was shut down after that, and I quit the job. I couldn't go back. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mike's face, his cold smile as he left me to die. I don't know where he is now, and I don't care. I just know I was supposed to die that day. I was supposed to be another body at the bottom of that shaft, another accident no one would question. But I survived. I wish I hadn't. My name is Kevin. I'm 24 years old, and I live in Denver. I recently started working as a night security guard at a high-rise office building downtown. Tonight was my first shift, and I thought it would be quiet and easy. The building was massive, with around 30 floors, mostly empty at night, except for a few cleaning staff on the lower levels. I spent the first few hours making rounds and checking the security monitors. Everything seemed normal, and I was getting bored. Around 2 a.m., I noticed something strange on the cameras. There was movement on the top floor, which was supposed to be vacant. I thought maybe it was a glitch, but I decided to check it out anyway. I took the elevator up, my heart pounding as I reached the top floor. The hallway was dark and silent. I stepped out, shining my flashlight around. Everything looked empty, just rows of cubicles and closed offices. Then I heard it, a faint noise, like someone crying, coming from one of the conference rooms. I felt a chill run down my spine. I knew I should have left, but I couldn't ignore it. I followed the sound and found a door slightly open. Inside, the room was dark except for some faint city lights coming through the windows. In the middle of the room, I saw a woman tied to a chair, her mouth gagged. Her eyes were wide with terror when she saw me. I rushed over, trying to untie her. "It's okay, I'm going to help you," I whispered, my hands trembling. Before I could get the knots loose, a voice crackled over the intercom. "Step away from her, Kevin." I froze. My name. How did they know my name? I looked around, but there was no one else in the room. The lights flickered, and I felt my heart racing. The woman was shaking her head, her eyes begging me to stop. I couldn't just leave her. I kept trying to untie her, but suddenly, the door burst open, and several masked men rushed in. They surrounded me, forcing me away from the woman. "Sit down," one of them ordered, shoving me into a chair. They turned on a large TV screen on the wall. I watched in horror as footage played of other security guards in uniforms like mine trying to save hostages. But it always ended badly. The guards were killed, and the hostages didn't survive. "This is your initiation," one of the men said, his voice cold and calm. "Join us, or end up like them." I shook my head, my voice barely a whisper. "No." The man nodded as if he expected it. "All right then." They grabbed me, tying me up next to the woman. I struggled, but they were too strong. Then they left, locking the door behind them. I heard a faint hissing sound. My heart sank. Gas. They were pumping gas into the room. The woman's eyes were filled with fear. I tried to hold my breath, but I was already feeling dizzy. I struggled against the ropes, desperate to get free. Somehow, I managed to get my hands loosed and stumbled to the door, gasping for air. I ran down the stairs, my lungs burning, not stopping until I reached the lobby and burst out into the night air. I looked back at the building, my head spinning, my body trembling. The next day, I went to the police and told them everything. But when we returned to the building, the top floor was empty. There were no ropes, no signs of struggle, nothing. The security footage had been erased. The building owners denied everything. No one believed me. But I know what happened. I still see her face, those terrified eyes, every time I close mine. I quit the job immediately. I couldn't go back there. I'll never forget that night. The night I learned how dark and twisted the world can be. I'm haunted by the memory of that woman, and I can still feel the fear I felt in that room. It's a feeling I'll never shake off, no matter how hard I try.